A creek doesn't stop in a single moment. It disappears in stages. First, the sound fades. That constant, quiet noise of water moving over stone, the thing that makes a place feel alive, slowly disappears. You don't notice it right away. You just notice something feels off. Then the current slows. What used to move with purpose begins to hesitate. The shallow water goes first. Gravel shows through. Rocks dry out under the sun. The channel gets wider because the water is pulling away. And what's left behind collects in the deeper bends. Pools, still water, clear water, too clear. Because now you can see everything inside it. Fish packed together, moving slower, staying near the bottom where it's cooler, all of them depending on something that is quietly disappearing. Then the pools begin to shrink, the edges turn to mud, the water warms, and everything inside that pool starts competing for the same thing: oxygen, space, time, until one day there is no pool left, and the creek becomes something else, not a creek, a dry path of rock and dust cut into the land where water used to live. That's how it happens: quiet, gradual, unavoidable. And if you've never depended on that creek, you might think it doesn't matter. But if you have, if your animals drink from it, if your land relies on it, then the moment it disappears, everything changes. In the summer of 2006, in the limestone hills of southern Missouri, that process played out exactly like this. The rain didn't stop completely. It just stopped enough. Enough that the ground took more water than it gave back. Enough that what fell from the sky never stayed long enough to matter. The land swallowed it, and the creeks followed. One by one, they slowed, they shrank, they vanished. Farmers walked the same paths their cattle had walked for years, down to the water, and found nothing. No current, no pool, no backup. Just dry stone, where there had always been water. Most of them said the same thing: it's the drought. And they were right, but not completely. Because the drought didn't create the problem, it exposed it. That's the part people don't like to admit. A bad year doesn't break a system. It reveals what was already broken. Because in that same summer, in that same county, under that same sky, some farms ran out of water in weeks, and some farms never ran out at all. Same drought, same heat, same land, completely different outcome. And the difference wasn't luck, it wasn't rain, it wasn't even geography. It was a decision made years earlier, necessary, expensive, and easy to delay. Something most farmers had stopped maintaining because they didn't need it yet. Water that was stored instead of trusted, because a creek only gives you water when it has something left to give. But stored water waits, and in the year everything stops, it's the only thing that doesn't. This is the story of one farm that understood that before the drought arrived, and why that one decision made the difference between hauling water and never needing to. The farms that failed that summer weren't careless. They were efficient. Everything made sense until it didn't. They used the creek because it was there. Free water. No diesel, no pipe, no maintenance. The cattle walked down, drank, and walked back. It worked every year, And when something works every year, it starts to feel permanent. That's the trap, because consistency feels like reliability, but it isn't the same thing. A system that works most years is not a system that works when it matters. That difference is invisible until the year it's tested. On most farms in that county, water wasn't stored, it was assumed. The creek would be there, it always had been. So the ponds were ignored, not removed, not destroyed, just forgotten. Sediment built up slowly, an inch one year, another the next. A pond that had once been 8 feet deep became 6, then 4, then 3. Still holding water, still working, just not the same. The spillways eroded, the edges softened. Algae spread across the surface in shallow, warm water that no longer had depth to protect it. And none of it felt urgent, because the creek was still flowing. The creek made the pond irrelevant, until the creek stopped. That's when the difference showed up. Not in theory, not on paper, in the field. Because when the water disappeared, the farms that depended on flow had nothing left. But the farms that had stored water had something else entirely: time. That's what storage really is. It's not just water, it's time you've saved, from a year when you didn't need it, for a year when you do. Most farmers don't think about water that way. They think about access. Where is it? How close is it? How easy is it to reach? But the real question isn't access, it's control. Do you control the water, or does the weather? Because if the answer is the weather, then sooner or later, you lose. There was one farm in that area, about 10 miles west of the main road, that had made a different choice. Not a dramatic one, not a modern one, just a consistent one. The farmer's name was Daniel Reeves, second generation, 640 acres, rolling pasture, mixed herd. Nothing about his operation stood out, except one thing. He maintained every pond, every single one. 10 ponds across the property, spread out so cattle never had to walk far. He cleaned them, not when they failed, before they failed. 1 pond a year, every year. The same rotation for over 2 decades. Some years it cost him $3,000. Some years more. And every year, people told him the same thing. You're wasting money. Because from the outside, that's exactly what it looked like. Spending money to fix something that wasn't broken. Maintaining water he wasn't even using, while everyone else was getting the same result for free. That's what made it hard to justify, because the benefit didn't exist yet. And in farming, if you can't see the benefit, it's easy to cut the cost. But Daniel wasn't maintaining ponds for the years that worked. He was maintaining them for the 1 year that wouldn't. And in 2006, that year arrived. By mid-July, the problem was no longer theoretical. It was visible. Not in reports, not in forecasts, in the field. Cattle walking the same path they had walked every day, down to the creek, and stopping. Because there was nothing there. No water, just rock. Hot, dry, and silent. At first, they kept coming back. Animals don't understand drought. They understand habit. They go where water has always been and expect it to still be there. But by the second week, the behavior changed. They spread out, restless, breaking fences, pushing into corners of pasture, looking for something that didn't exist anymore. And that's when the farmers knew this wasn't a dry spell. This was failure. Because without water, nothing else matters. Not grass, not weight gain, not price. Water is the first input. Remove it, and the entire system collapses. The first response was hauling. Pickup trucks, stock trailers, plastic tanks strapped down with chains. 40, 50 miles a day. Fill, drive, dump, repeat. Every day. It worked, but barely. 800 gallons sounds like a lot until 80 head of cattle need it. Then it's gone in hours, and tomorrow you start again. Fuel cost climbed, time disappeared, and the animals still weren't getting enough. Condition dropped. Weight fell off ribs you could count a month earlier. The heat made it worse, because water isn't just survival, it's cooling. Without it, everything stresses faster. Then came the second decision, the one nobody wants to make. Sell. Not because you want to, but because you have to. Because feeding animals you can't water isn't farming. It's waiting for loss. So trailers started moving, but not toward pasture, toward auction. And when everyone sells at the same time, price collapses. What was worth $1,200 became $900, sometimes less. The math was brutal. Lose the animal, lose the future calf, lose the time already invested, all because of one missing input, water, and all of it happening within 3 weeks. That's how fast a system fails, when it depends on something it doesn't control. But 10 miles west, on the same ground, under the same heat, Daniel's farm looked unchanged. Not perfect. The ponds were lower, 3 feet down from spring level, edges exposed, water darker, warmer, but still there. And more importantly, still enough. The cattle walked to water and found it every day. No trucks, no tanks, no panic. Just the same routine in a year when nothing else was normal. That's the difference storage makes. Not abundance, stability. Because Daniel didn't need full ponds. He just needed enough to outlast the drought. And he had it. Not because of rain, because of maintenance. Water he saved years before was now carrying him through a year that broke everyone else. By early August, neighbors started noticing. Not quietly, not academically, practically. They were out of options, and Daniel wasn't. That's when the first truck pulled into his driveway. The first truck didn't come with a plan. It came with a problem. Daniel saw it pull into the yard, slow, uncertain, like the driver wasn't sure what he was about to ask. It was Mark Ellison, neighbor, 3 pastures over, 80 head, creek fed, until it wasn't. Mark stepped out of the truck, didn't say much at first, just looked past Daniel toward the nearest pond. Water still there. That was enough to say everything. I need water, not a long explanation. It didn't need one. Because in that moment, every farmer in that county understood exactly what that meant. Not convenience, not efficiency, survival. Daniel didn't answer right away, not because he didn't want to help, because he was calculating, not money, water. How much he had, how long it would last, how much margin he could give without breaking his own system. That's the thing about stored water. It gives you control, but it also gives you responsibility. Because once you have something others don't, people will come. Daniel looked at the pond again, still deep enough, still holding. He knew the number, rough estimate. His herd could run for years on what was left. Adding another herd would reduce that margin, but not eliminate it. Run a line, he said, just don't waste it. That was all. No contract, no negotiation. Because in that moment, water wasn't business, it was necessity. By the end of the week, it wasn't just one truck, it was 3, then 5. Word spread faster than rain ever could. Not through announcements, through absence. Who had water and who didn't. Pipes started appearing across fence lines. Black plastic stretched across pasture, laid over dirt, ducked under wire. Gravity doing the work pumps couldn't keep up with. Small troughs filling slowly but steadily. And for the first time in weeks, some cattle stopped pacing. They drank and stayed. That's when it became obvious. This wasn't just about one farm doing better. It was about one system working while another failed completely. Because the difference wasn't scale. Mark had more acreage, more cattle, more equipment. None of it mattered. Because none of it solved the one problem that mattered. Water when there is no water. Daniel hadn't built anything new. He hadn't upgraded. He hadn't optimized. He had just maintained what already existed. And that maintenance became infrastructure, not just for him, for everyone around him. That's the part nobody expects. A system that looks inefficient in good years becomes essential in bad ones. Because efficiency removes excess. And excess is exactly what you need when things go wrong. By late August, Daniel's ponds were supporting more than double his own herd, and still holding. Lower now, edges wider, but not failing. Because depth is resilience you can't see until everything else disappears. One evening, Mark stood by the fence, watching his cattle drink from a trough connected to water that wasn't his. "You were right," he said. Daniel didn't respond, because it wasn't about being right. It was about being prepared for something everyone knew would happen and chose to ignore. The drought didn't change the land. It changed the truth. It made visible what had always been there. 2 kinds of farms. Ones that borrow from the moment and ones that save for it. And in a year like this, only one of them keeps working. The rain came back. It always does. Not when you need it, but eventually. Late September, Clouds build up again over the hills. The first storm rolled through at night, heavy, sudden, loud enough to wake people who hadn't heard rain like that in months. By morning, the dust was gone, the ground was soft, and the creeks started to come back. Not full, not strong, but moving again, water over rock, sound returning, life reappearing. Within a week, most of the emergency lines were gone. The pipes were rolled up, the trucks stopped running. Cabell walked back to the creek like nothing had happened. That's how fast memory fades. When the system starts working again, people stop asking why it failed. That's the dangerous part, because the drought didn't fix anything. It just passed. And when it passed, so did the urgency. Most farmers went back to exactly what they were doing before. The creek was flowing again, and the creek was free. The ponds were still there, still shallow, still filling with sediment, still slowly losing the capacity that would matter in the next drought, because there is always a next one. Not next year, not on schedule, but it comes. And when it comes, it doesn't ask if you're ready. It just shows you if you are. Daniel didn't change anything after that summer. He didn't expand. He didn't upgrade. He didn't optimize. He just kept doing what he had always done. One pond a year. Clean it, restore it, move to the next. The same rotation, the same cost, the same system that nobody notices when everything works. That's the difference. Most systems are built for good years. His was built for the bad one. And that changes everything. Because a good year doesn't test anything. It hides weakness. It rewards shortcuts. It makes fragile systems look strong. But a bad year does the opposite. It strips everything down to what actually works. And when that happens, efficiency doesn't matter. Speed doesn't matter. Cost doesn't matter. The only thing that matters is whether the system holds. That's what the drought proved. Not that some farmers were smarter, not that some land was better, just that some systems were built to last longer than a season, and most weren't. The creek flows again now. If you drive past those farms, you wouldn't see a difference. Same cattle, same grass, same fences. But the difference is still there, hidden in the ground, in the depth of a pond, or the lack of it, waiting for the next time everything stops, because it will. And when it does, the farms that survive won't be the ones that were cheapest to run. They'll be the ones that prepared for a year when nothing works. That's the whole story.